my daddy's making it hurt.
What's up? What's up? This is Deep Cover back at you, off-season edition. Gonna give y'all a little position group review, breakdown, kick some thoughts, share some thoughts about the different position groups going into the 2026 season. So we're doing this before training camp has started. This is week of July the 4th. We're a couple days away from it, but week of July 4th. So I don't remember when training camp is supposed to start. Sometime in July, but we thought it'd be good time, good idea to just go through before they get into camp. Look at each group, talk about maybe some position battles or just the guys who are in those groups, what we think about it, the mix. Do we feel like it's good, or does it need something? We just gonna do an open run here as we go through these different position groups and get all the ideas out there. As usual, I'm joined by the stars of the show, Chris and Carey. Start with you, Carey, man. What's going on?
Good, man. It's really, really good to be talking to you guys again. It's been a little bit of a break. Life been lifing, but it's nice to get back and link back up with you guys, man. Like I'm really, really looking forward to getting into this.
Yeah, you ain't lying about the life been lifing part. I know where you coming from, but it is good. It's always good to talk to y'all, man. We've been doing this for a long time. I think 2019, 2020, something like that. So obviously we connected through the Ravens, but I feel like we talk to each other on so many different levels that don't have nothing to do with football. So we have a little bit of break, and we haven't really chopped it up like we normally do. It does feel like it's a void, like it's something missing a little bit. And then, it's cool to get back together and do this. So always good to talk to y'all. Chris, how about you, man? How you been? I know, up there in New York celebrating the championship with the Knicks. How's everything going?
Everything's good, man. Got my first taste of the beach today. So, summer has officially started.
Nice. Yeah, ain't nothing like getting to that beach.
Right.
And then, like a jackass, I fell asleep on the beach with my knees bent, like my knees up, and my knees got burnt to damn hell. Like a jackass.
Yeah, because I imagine this heat, like where I'm at down here in the DMV, and then I know you up. It's like the whole East Coast, right? Like all this heat is supposed to be dropping this week, because I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we supposed to be like 99, 100, 101.
Yeah,
crazy.
About to be like Mars over here.
But yeah, you got to be careful out there at that beach, because you could burn up quick out there. Ain't no joke. Because ain't nowhere to go. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't got no umbrella or nothing to cover you, it's just full on sun if you're not in the water. But yeah, that is when it's official. I'm hoping that we can get the fam down to the beach at some point this summer too. Well, let's jump into this. Position group review. And so we're going to start on offense, and then, kick it over to the defense, and going to keep it real simple, man. We're just going to start right at the top with the quarterbacks. The first two, I think everybody pretty set. Lamar is going to be Lamar. We know that. Snoop, back in the fold again. And I think we've seen what Snoop can do, when he has to come in. And now, some of the new guys who are going to be there in camp, Diego Pavia from Wake Forest fame. A lot of college football fans probably familiar with him and some of the things they was doing at Wake Forest with him as quarterback. Joe Fagano. Yeah, I'm mispronouncing that bad. But quarterback from UConn, who's an undrafted free agent. And this guy
Careful saying that name.
I know you got to. You see, I'm doing the what do you call it? The long A. Maybe trying to do like an Italian pronunciation. I'm trying to be careful with it. And then Skylar Thompson, who's been in the league for a little bit. I think he was with the Dolphins. Maybe.
Yeah.
Is that where
he was with the Dolphins. He was a Matt Waldman favorite too. I don't even know
Remember that?
what year that was.
Yeah, so he is coming into year 4, and he came out in it's right here on our last. He's undrafted in that says Pitt, but doesn't say his year. So did he go to the Steelers out of as a UDFA? Maybe and then ended up with Miami. Anyway, don't know all of Skylar's journey. He's here now, so he's in this group, and I'll start again with you, Carey. Man, I mean, at the top, no surprises. We know we know what to expect from 8. But what do you think about the rest of this group?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice to go into it. Obviously, Lamar is the cream of the crop at the position, pretty much around the league. But it's nice to come into it with a solidified number two. With Snoop coming in, he tried to save the season
Mm,
last year, but
sure did. He did his part.
Harbs and DaCosta, their vibes was too strong for him with some of the stuff they had going on. But he earned that extension and that number two position, and I think he'll transition well to this new offense. So having that solidified number two, and I'm curious on Skylar Thompson. As Chris pointed out, he was a Matt Wallman favorite in his draft class. Went to Miami. When we saw him play in Miami, it was really he just got kind of thrust into just difficult spots. With Tua's injuries and just having to just be thrown in to play. I'm curious to see where he is now. I think he's what 28 now. It's because he was old coming in. A few years under his belt. He's a guy I'm
Right.
I'm interested in watching in the preseason and see where he is. Maybe he's a guy that you can have on the practice squad going forward, and then the rookies. Just see if you can catch lightning in the bottom with one of them. Maybe one of those guys become the guy that you have on the practice squad as a third quarterback.
Yeah, Thompson is 28, and you're right. I think the first, if I remember correctly, I think his first like real NFL action was like in the playoffs. Wasn't it? Wasn't it a playoff game against the
Yeah, I
Bills?
think so. Yeah.
He
Mm.
had to
Yeah.
start or came in, and I don't know if he started it or if he came in, but that was like his first, and it was like, yeah, it don't get it don't get no harder than that. But yeah, Chris mentioned Matt Waldman favor, so there are definitely things that Matt liked about his game, and it is going to be interesting. Chris, what do you think about this group? I mean, I know, uh, we got that comfort level with Snoop as a backup. We've seen it. We've seen Snoop in a G-Row offense. We've seen Snoop in a Todd Monken offense, and now he's coming into yet another offense. And it just seems like, regardless, you know what to expect from Snoop. He gonna go out there. He gonna execute the offense, and he not gonna lose the game for you. So it's always nice to have that level of comfort with a backup.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw with that, failure with the Cooper Rush experiment. So it's good to have somebody that, has multiple years of showing that if Lamar goes down for, a game or two, that he can come in and he can hold he can hold the fort down while Aid is dealing with whatever he's dealing with. But hopefully we don't have to see that this season. So it's good to have that kind of security behind Lamar. Obviously he's a locker room favorite too, so that always helps just chemistry wise. I know that's something that gets thrown, under the rug, but that's something that's huge as well. And as far as the young guys, well, you got Skylar Thompson too. Like Carey said, hopefully he's a guy that they could keep around on the practice squad. It's always good to have, one of those vets on the practice squad who can help run an offense. He's been in multiple systems before. He knows, what to how to be a pro, how to come in and how to prepare. So I think having a guy like that on the practice squad would be good. Now, the one that intrigues me is the Joe F word guy. Um,
Joe F.
yeah, because I was watching the Yukon offense when I was watching Skylar Bell, and they run a very, very sophisticated offense where
Mm,
they're giving teams multiple looks, and it was probably one of the most fun offenses that I've watched just from a schematic standpoint because they did so many different things on offense. Um, and I'm interested to see how he translates. So now, I I didn't see him as a prospect that was where I was like, oh yeah, this dude should be a fifth rounder or fourth rounder, something like that. He doesn't have any traits that jump out at you, but the fact that he was able to run that sophisticated system at that level to me shows that behind the ears, there's something there. He throws with anticipation. He's able to dissect different types of defensive looks that they throw at him. So I'm interested to see how he looks during training camp and in the preseason. And then that other guy, Diego Pavia,
mm.
you know, obviously he's going to be the guy that he has the moxie, as they like
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not really anticipating much from him as a passer. Um, he's about 5'3.5". It's gonna be tough. He doesn't have any physical traits that stand out. He isn't, some great passer or anything like that, but when the lights come on, he does fight. So guys like that, if he could get a shot during the preseason, he's not gonna go down, just like with his tail between his legs. He's gonna go down swinging. So that should be interesting to watch during the preseason too.
Yeah, he definitely got that gamer label. You're right. He's a gamer. That's gonna happen. But you know, um, like
He's annoying as hell though. I'm
yeah,
put that out there. He's annoying as hell. I was watching this thing last year of the SDC where they follow a bunch of different quarterbacks and with a bunch of different players, and he was one of the players that they were following, and they were like, well, he was telling a story about how he would go try to work out at Vandy's gym, and they were like, "Oh, you can't come in, at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, whatever it was." And he was like, "Oh, I just broke the door open and I was able to get in."
yeah, yeah.
But he was like real smug about it too. It was just,
Mm.
I don't know, man. He's annoying as hell. I don't like him.
He definitely had that type of attitude. I didn't see that, but I saw him on the Gruden QB thing he does, where he interviews some of the guys, and yeah, you could just see like, I know, people say you gotta let the past be the past, but anybody that's like vibing too much with Gruden, I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know about that. Know about that right now. Y'all getting along a little too well. Y'all got a little too much in common. You like the same things, huh? What type of things y'all into? So that had me looking a little. I was
Yeah,
like,
and
I
and
don't know about
and,
that.
and you don't really have the last name, sir, to get away with breaking and entering. You might
You
want to
sure don't.
tread a little lighter on that.
Yeah, this economy, you find yourself on a plane, you better be careful with the craziness that's going on here. So in respect to Joe F, I went to the beast. We'll make sure Dane will put the phonetic pronunciations in there. I would have never got this. I would have never thought this is how you pronounce it. So it's Fin Yan O. So
Oh,
Fin
okay.
Oh,
YAN -OH is how you spell
Finiano.
it out.
Okay.
Finiano. Yeah, I would have never. So my bad,
hmm.
Joe. I want to make sure we want to be respectful to people. Names are important. So Joe Finiano. Okay. Last thing I would say about the quarterback thing, and this is probably going to come up uh, repeatedly as we do this. Maybe less so on defense because it's a similar system. Yeah, it's different coach, but similar system. But this really is a different offense than what Lamar um, has run. Like we know about Giro when they went to Monken. I think they kept a fair amount of stuff, particularly in the run game. I think passing game they were probably doing some new things. But I've heard them talk about. I've heard Lamar say that they kept a fair amount of stuff from G Road to Monken. But I think this is going to be a departure, right? Now, football is
Yeah.
football, outside zone. Certain concepts, they are what they are. But how you teach them, we've already heard right from the OTA stuff about the detail from Declan Doyle, and hey, you gotta be precise, right? We've heard all of that. So I think that's something to keep an eye on, and by all accounts, what we've heard even from OTAs is like things seem to be going well, seem to be picking up things. The new staff are good teachers. I know that's something that they really focused on, and good communicators. But just something to keep in mind, because sometimes these past seasons you're like, yeah, we still have a certain level of expectation because they have familiarity with the offense, but this really is kind of going to be something different, I think. And so just something to keep an eye on the offensive side of the ball with how that goes. Not so much with Lamar, because Lamar, like so many people have said, I think Hollywood talked about it recently. Lamar is the system, right? We all
Right.
this stuff talking about, does he fit into it? No. He is the system. Okay,
Hmm.
so
Right.
whatever you doing on offense, it starts with him, and he's who makes it work, right? I mean,
Right.
yeah, no disrespect to Declan Doyer or any other OC, because obviously they're talented and they work hard too, but 8 is the system. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried about him. But like with some of the other guys, you just want to see how they kind of pick that up. Okay, so let's keep it moving. Running back, another one where I don't think there's like a whole lot of uncertainty here. Obviously, the king, Derrick Henry, still doing his thing. Seems to have found the secret, found the youth. Right, just seems to keep going and going and going. Justice Hill, who I had to look this up because I forgot how long Justice had been around. I think Justice is going into year 8, which seems
Damn.
crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's going into year 8. Rasheen Ali, who I can remember last season we were kind of scratching our heads about why is he getting so much run as opposed to Keaton Mitchell. Well, hey, we've seen they did not retain Keaton, and so Rasheen might have more of a clear path to that third running back role, but there are some young guys as well. So Adam Randall. Now, when the owner picks you probably gonna get a pretty good look. You know what I'm saying? You probably gonna get a pretty good look when the owner picks you. And then you got a couple undrafted guys in Dante McMillan and Elijah Tolliver. I'm gonna look up his name too while you guys are talking to make sure I get the pronunciation right. But anyway, um, we'll keep the pattern going. Carey, what do you think about this group? Obviously, at the top, we know what we're getting, but could be a little intrigue for that third running back spot.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that. And something I thought about today as I was looking at it. Um, they obviously have some kind of level of confidence in Justice Hill and Rasheen Ali. Just when you kind of break it down, first they let Keaton walk for nothing, and then they don't address running back until the 5th round. And if you take their word for it, as far as the process of Bashadi making that pick, it's not like they knew he was going to pick a running back. They didn't know who he was going to pick. So that takes you all the way through the 5th round, and you didn't draft a running back. To me, that tells me like either they have a real level of confidence in Justice Hill and Rasheen Ali, and I lean that confidence more towards Rasheen Ali because Justice Hill, you know what you got. That's a vet. You know what he's capable of, his strengths, weaknesses. But I I just kind of wonder. It makes me think like maybe they have a good level of confidence in Rasheen Ali, um, as far as being able to do some of that early down stuff, because that's what it comes down to. Justice Hill, we know he can do early down stuff, but we know the bread is buttered as far as his protection on 3rd down. So that's something that we can be comfortable with and know we don't have to worry about that from that standpoint. But I do think of an early down compliment to um, Derrick Henry and trying to project who that is in his room. And I think maybe it's Rasheen Ali, maybe it's somebody outside of that's a free agent right now. If they get into training camp and they, maybe they don't have the same level of confidence. But I'm really curious with Rasheen Ali to see him in training camp early in preseason, how he looks in the zone scheme, and what Declan Doyle wants from his running backs. I think we'll get an idea early. If guys aren't running to the level that he feels like they should, I think you'll see some veterans at it. But all in all, Rasheen Ali is the guy I'm really, really looking at. And then just kind of looking at the depth chart, uh, Lucas Scott, fullback that maybe can give you some of what Ricard gave you. That would be something to kind of look at too. But yeah, all in all, man, I'm just really, really curious on Rasheen Ali. Obviously, Adam Randall as well. We don't have a lot of running back tape on him, but I mean the ability is there for sure. So, maybe he's a guy that can jump in early and become somebody that gets touches. Once the games start counting.
Yeah, and again, like I joked about the, when the owner picks you, that means you're probably going to get a longer look. But like you say, it really is, about the potential, right, and the physical profile, and kind of we don't really know. I think he only started at running back one season at Clemson, one full season,
Yep.
I think, and
Yep.
he was playing receiver prior to that. So at 6'3", 230 pounds in the backfield, that's a big dude, man. That is a big dude. So yeah, that's going to be real interesting. And Chris, when I kick it over to you, I think the thing with Rasheen Ali for me was last year, again, when I said we were kind of going like scratching our heads, like, well, why is he getting more run to Keaton? It seemed like they valued Rasheen more. Two areas: special teams. Now I know Keaton was a returner, but he didn't cover. He didn't cover kicks, right? He just returned. And then,
Yeah.
maybe they trusted Rasheen a little bit too, like Carey just said, in terms of pass protection on third down. But it seemed like that was one of those like hard calls, right? Special teams, I'm gonna give you the nod, but Harbs ain't here no more. And so I'm wondering, how that's going to be looked at this time. But what are your thoughts on this group, Chris? Oh, do I got to add Chris back in? Oh yeah, I sure do. Hey, here you go. All right, sorry, my bad.
No, um, yeah, obviously we know King Henry, he's going to do what he does. And especially if this offensive line can be better than it was last year, he can have an even better season, in my opinion. Justice Hill, uh, you know, Justice Hill, everybody who listens to us, they know we're fans of Justice Hill. Um, he's very serviceable. Second running back, just got to stay healthy. Last year he was a little bit unfortunate with some of the injuries he had, but hopefully this year he could stay healthy. Rasheen Ali, I think he's a guy, in my opinion, he gets a lot of flack that doesn't have to do with him. Like as far as Harbs, you know, being that guy who's special teams guy, like you said, Mike. Um, but when you look at him as a player, like he's a solid
He is.
player. Like he
Yeah.
will do whatever you ask. He's not gonna be, this, super talented back who's gonna, you know, give you 100, 1,000 yards every year. But that's not his role on this team. You
Mhm.
have King Henry. You don't need another guy to be a superstar running back. He does a little bit of everything. He can run between the tackles. He can run with some speed. He can pass pro. He can catch. He does a little bit of everything, and that's what I appreciate about his game. And a lot of people didn't like Justice Hill when he was coming up
Mhm.
because they thought that he was lacking, and Justice Hill slowly but surely turned his game into an all-around game where he can be a guy who can pick up some short yardage, where he can be a guy who can pick up a blitz or catch out of the backfield. And I think we're seeing something similar with Rasheen Ali, where he's going to be that guy who whatever you ask him to do, he'll be able to excel at it. Not at an elite level, but he'll be able to. He's a jack of all trades, master of none type of guy. And to me, you need one of those guys, especially if that's your third running back. Like that's a really solid third running back. Um, Now Adam Randall, he's a guy where you know the your imagination runs wild when you see somebody like him because he's big, he's fast, and obviously he didn't live up to the expectation that he came to Clemson with, but in the Ravens system and with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, he is somebody who can potentially, if everything goes right, maybe be that diamond in the rough and the successor for King Henry. It- Obviously that is the best case scenario,
Hmm.
but it's going to take some time to get there. You watch his tape, you still don't see a natural feel for a running back,
Yeah.
but with more carries, with more, having dudes like Derrick Henry, Justice Hill be able to give you some of that game and some of the tips and then obviously just running in the offense, being a running back with Jackson as your quarterback, like that's gonna open things up like crazy for you too. So I'm excited to see how his progression goes. I'm not anticipating a huge role for him in year one, obviously, because like we said, 1 to 3 is, I don't want to say solidified because you don't know how this coaching staff is going to feel about Ali, but I think if I had to predict right now, I would say he's probably going to be running back 3. I'd be running back 4 with a potential to maybe overtake Ali. But what I'm interested in seeing him do is the return game
Mm.
because the return game rules are so different now. And to me, he fits the mold perfectly of what you want
Yep.
in a returner in today's game.
Yep.
And that's where he can really excel and really kind of, wiggle his way into some playing time because that is where I think he'll be able to make the most noise in his rookie year.
That's a good call. That is a good call because,
Yeah.
like you said, with the rules now, the way these returns are blocked, it's basically a running play now.
Mhm.
So having somebody with that type of body type. Also, Randall, super young, man, 21 years old. So he Adam Randall. I wanted to mention that about him because I was looking the Ravens website, their roster. Um, he's the youngest dude in the room. I mean, yes, he's a rookie, but the other two undrafted guys are 23 and 24, and Elijah Towns Oliver and Dante McMillan, and even Lucas Scott is 22. So,
Mm.
Randall young not only in experience at the running back position, but young in age too. Um, so that's going to be an interesting development because there's just like a lot of raw like a ball of clay, like you said. So you're just wondering, what is this going to develop into? But
And wise too. He's
yeah,
young, but he is wise because you listen to some of that pre-draft stuff and him speaking about how his time went at Clemson because he was a 5-star guy,
yeah,
highly touted. Things did not go as planned for him, and just the way that he explained his situation and how it made him better, like just as a man. Like
yeah,
I was like, Jesus, this kid is wise beyond his years.
yeah. I don't
Yeah.
think you have any questions about the person, like from a character standpoint. I
Hmm.
think you see like that already is like at a very, very mature level, very, like about business, very buttoned up. Um, Sort of reminds like Devin Duvernay, right? It was just very, just like very polished.
Yeah.
I think Randall, he seemed like he'll crack a smile and laugh and joke a little bit more. Devin was like straight business, like all the time.
Hmm.
But yeah, man, it's impressive to see these young guys so young, like at 21 years old. like you say, have that type of wisdom and maturity. I know I was a damn fool at 21, so it's crazy, crazy to see these guys like that. All right, let's jump into tight end, and then we'll do wide receiver because it's a bunch of names there in that wide receiver room. So tight end, the wily vet, still doing it. Mark Andrews. They brought in Durham Smythe, who was with the Bears last year, so you get somebody who's a little familiar with the offense. And then two rookies drafted this year in Matt Hibner in the fourth round and Jose Cuervo, aka Josh Cuevas, in round five, and then undrafted guy Ty Peza, to kind of round out the room. So I was saying before we started to record, Carey, I start with you. We got two 9-year vets in Andrews and Durham Smythe, and then three rookies. So kind of got the barbell sort of approach to the tight end room. But those young rookies, the ones who were drafted this year, seem to have some interesting skill sets. I mean, Hibner, looks like a fairly athletic dude, for the tight end position, and Cuevas, don't sleep on him either. I mean, I don't know why, but I guess before I had watched him, I was thinking, okay, maybe he's more of the blocker, and yeah, he can certainly do that. But they get him the ball in the flat. It wasn't necessarily so much down the field stuff. I think Hibner was doing a little bit more down the field stuff, especially when he got to SMU from Michigan. But Cuevas, man, like he right in that Nick Boyle mode, boy, in the ball in the flat. He want to hurdle somebody. So they got a little more athleticism than maybe I might have thought. But what are your thoughts on that group?
Yeah, I'm curious how you guys feel about it. I think it's one of those things where I'm still trying to figure out um, the approach there. I feel like maybe this wasn't necessarily the group that they were gunning for.
Mm.
And the run that we saw on tight end in the draft kind of forced their hand to maybe go a little bit with more higher floor, lower ceiling players. And that's not a knock or a disrespect to either one of the guys they drafted. I think they're good players, they're talented players. I don't think either one of those guys are guys that you are projecting to be eventual number one guys in a room kind of talents. So then that brings me to the other question. Um, are they too high, or do they have too much confidence in Mark Andrews, this current version of Mark Andrews? So that's like another question I have with the room. And I think, maybe the contract they gave Mark Andrews gives me part of that answer already. But the group as a whole, I think, is a good group. Um, Andrews obviously is going to be back. He's going to be the number one guy. Hopefully we see a bounce back from him. I think we saw a certain drop off in certain areas of his game as far as ability to separate. Um, but I do think he's still a talented player that can, definitely contribute. Matthew Hibner, um, you know, Mike, you caught this right away. Like, he can get up the seam in a hurry. So he's definitely a guy that's a seam threat. I think he's a good threat at the catch point, and I think he's just kind of well rounded in a lot of ways. And our guy Jose Cuervo, um, when I first started watching him, I immediately thought about, and this was around the time where we're trying to project what this Declan Doyle offense is going to be, and the influence of Ben Johnson, but then the influence of Sean Payton. And I immediately thought about these drags off of boot action and flat stuff with him, getting those just quick, easy dump off throws to the tight end, but having a tight end that can kind of eat up some grass. And I definitely think he's a guy that can do that. Even if it's out of the backfield, if it's detached, I think he's a guy that can that has some juice after the catch. So, these are interesting role playing type of guys that I think can contribute. And then you got Durham Smythe, inline guy that can just get the job done as a pass catcher. So, all in all, I don't really see a a tier one type of talent in this group, but I think overall it's a good group that has four guys that can contribute in different ways, and maybe you piece this all together, and your group of guys kind of turn into a really good tight end one by committee almost.
Yeah, it could be one of those things where the sum of the parts is greater, right, than any of the
Yeah.
individual ones. Um, that's you raised some interesting questions though, and so let me hear what Chris thinks about that, because that run certainly happened on tight ends in the draft. And I remember when we did our mock draft, we thought we were going to be able to get certain people, and even in our mock, tight ends were kind of coming off. And so, these are the guys who they I'm sure they had them where they had them when they were bored, but like you were saying, Kate, Carey, they probably thought maybe they were going to have opportunity for some other guys too. But now this is who they have. So, Chris, what do you think about this room?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Carrie. It's I don't think this is what they wanted it to be. Um, but I'm also not worried about it. Obviously, you have Mark Andrews there. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Then you have Durham Smythe who can, do a little bit of everything as far as blocking and, give you a little sprinkle of receiving here and there. But he's mainly going to be your dirty work guy. Um, Hibner, I really like Hibner. I like. I don't want to say he's an Isaiah Likely replacement because Isaiah Likely's so unique at the tight end position that you can't replicate that. But I feel like the usage can be similar, um, where you're able to move him around and do these different type of things with him. And he's somebody that I'm really intrigued with seeing how he develops and what he can possibly turn into because he's a fun player. You watch how SMU used him, lining him up in the backfield, lining him up in line, lining him up out wide, lining him up in the slot. Like they were just moving him all around and that type of usage because it's not just like oh they were doing it just to do it. It's like no, he was actually producing in each of those roles that he was asked to do. And to me that's exciting to see that a player who can take on the responsibility like that in the offense and know those because you have to learn how to play those different types of positions, and for him to do that and do it at a fairly high level, that's impressive. Just not only physically, but in between the ears too. So I'm very excited to see him. Um, Josh Cuevas, he's somebody who's underrated, and you have to watch the Alabama games to really see the impact that he has because he was kind of the guy who was like stirring the drink over there for that Alabama offense. And when he got hurt and he wasn't on the field, their offense just felt different. You can look at his stats and be like, yeah, modest numbers. But when you watch the actual game and you see the kind of impact that he has and how much the quarterbacks relied on him. He's a guy that obviously there when the team drafted Charlie Kohler, fans weren't really excited, after watching his tape because he's not a fast guy, he's not
Mhm.
a flashy guy, and Cuevas is kind of in that similar mold where he isn't this super athletic, hyper, crazy athletic tight end or anything like that. But when you watch him play the game, you can see that there's an energy that he plays with that his teammates feed off of. And we saw that with Charlie Kohler too, where he was that guy who kind of brought some energy and a guy that his teammates loved, and eventually he developed into an all-around tight end. And I think it could be a similar situation with Cuevas too.
Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see that. I think um, it's going to be interesting. They've done this a number of times before, right? We That was a big talking point before the draft, the double dip at tight end, right?
Hmm.
This has happened, and how oftentimes the second guy ends up, kind of being a little better than the first guy. So it'd be interesting to see, how that continues. Um, the thing I forgot to add about Hibner too, because these connections, these little connections, always like seem to make a difference. Obviously, Jesse Minter knows him from Hibner was at Michigan before he went to
Yeah.
SMU in 2024 and 2025. So he was on that 2023 Natty team at Michigan. And you talk about a stacked tight end room. So Hibner was in that room, AJ Barner was in that room, Colston Lublin was in that room, and Marlon Klein, who just got drafted by the Texans in the second round of this year's draft, was in that room.
Mm.
So they had a bunch of dudes in that room. And I think I heard Hibner sort of talk about like when he transferred, like, hey, he was at Michigan, he was kind of asked to do certain things. They won the Natty, and then he felt like he had other parts of his game that he could showcase, particularly in the receiving role. And so he wanted to go to SMU into an offense that would kind of showcase that. And I think he did that. I think like we both talked about, we've all talked
Yeah.
about, he actually was able to kind of show like, hey, I can get down the field. I can stretch a seam. I can make some catches. I can do some things with the ball in my hands after the catch, on a shorter catch. So, he I think he definitely displayed that. But yeah, those little connections, they make a difference, and so that'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on too, because he's got that connection um, with Jesse Mentor and other guys on that staff probably who were at Michigan at that time too. All right, so jumping to wide receiver here next. So a lot of names in this room, a lot of guys. So of course we know Zay, we know Bate right at the top. Devontae Walker, who uh, you know uh, acquitted himself, I think, nicely with the opportunities that he had last season. Caught a few touchdowns. Kind of lived up to what we thought in terms of his field stretching ability. I think you started to see Lamar develop a comfort level with targeting him. When players were sort of dialed up for that, so that was good to see that. And then, of course, everybody knows about the two guys they took this year, in Elijah Surratt and Jacoby Lane. And then LeJontay Wester, also coming back from last year. We know what he's able to do as a returner, but, who we may see him maybe get some opportunities too as a receiver. And then, like I said, a bunch of other names: Dayton Wade, Xavier Gilroy, Cornelius Johnson, Cortez Branham Jr., Octavian Smith Jr. So lots of names in this wide receiver room, Carey. It does look like, though, that third, fourth, maybe even fifth. I don't know how many receivers they're going to keep on the initial 53 roster, but after Zay and Bate, and I've seen some of the talk out there about Bate this year. They're like, hey, don't necessarily pencil him into the number two role, but I'm assuming as we look at it today, those are your top two guys. But after that, like I said, Devontae did some nice things last year, so I think he maybe has got maybe a little bit of an advantage, but you got them young guys they just picked in the draft this year too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really young group. And when I kind of looked at it again today, and that's kind of been a running theme for me the last few weeks. And I know it's been a lot of talk on veteran receivers and can this group be a group that can win a Super Bowl and this and that. And right now, I just kind of have some cautious optimism on them. And I think as part of it is their talent. And then part of it is just faith in the coaching staff, starting with Declan Doyle, and just wanting to give these guys an opportunity to at least get to training camp and see what we have and just let it be the empty slate and let these guys prove that they can step to the forefront. I think all the top 5 or 6 guys all have different kind of strengths and have different kind of upside that you can potentially tap into. Um, I was looking at a couple stats on Zay Flowers, and I think Chris Cooper had this. He had the seventh most yards in the NFL on in breaking routes last year.
Mhm.
And I think we can, we don't know for sure what this offense is going to be, but I think with the Ben Johnson influence, I think we're probably going to see a lot of in breaking
It's gonna be some more
routes.
breakers.
So, I mean, seventh in the whole NFL is pretty impressive. Zay Flowers also 2.57 yards per route run last year. That's
Mhm.
that's up there. That's
Yeah.
that's that's nearing the best of the best. So I'm really excited to see him um, it, with this offense that's going to be predicated on creating space and giving guys runway to just get the ball and get upfield, whether there's a leap for him, especially going into, contract talks and all of that. I think there's a leap to be had for him. And I'm very interested to see if he can meet his potential. Rashad Bateman, like we just said, a clean slate. Let's see what this is. I come in with no expectations. He could be the number two receiver. He could very well be the number four receiver. Um, it's up to him.
Mhm.
But clearly he's never lacked for talent. So
No, we know he can
what?
run routes. We
Right?
know that.
Yeah, we know he has the ability to run routes and separate. Let's see in an offense that should be more friendly to his talents and should have more of a um, kind of focus, I would say, on getting guys the ball. I think as much as we love Monken, I don't think there was a focus necessarily on his end to, hey, I need to get this guy the ball more, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, as far as getting individuals touches outside of Lamar and Derek and so I think you'll see a little bit more of that, especially you're looking at Declan Doyle coming from Chicago. They kind of spread the ball a little bit um, there last year, so maybe we see a little bit more of that, just more of an emphasis on getting guys touches. Um, Tez is the wild card. Tez is like that vertical threat, has the size. They can tap into some of this play action downfield shots with him. Um, can he be unleashed? What does his ceiling look like? Is he just a lead lifter guy that mixes in on, um, as the fourth receiver, or is he more? Is there something to kind of tap into that offers a little bit more? Um, Jacoby Lane, is a guy that maybe he wouldn't have been a lot of our first choice as that first receiver selected. But the more you kind of look into his profile, his production, his athletic talent, you can see the vision there. He needs to kind of gain a little bit more urgency as far as how he runs his routes, the tempo and pacing and some things, and get a bit stronger. But I can at least say I see the vision there, um, with what he has and what he brings to the table. Elijah Surratt is, a guy that we're all pretty high on. Just fits the mold as a guy that can move the chains, win at the catch point, but then offers that big slot that we haven't really seen a lot of, but that's here, but that's coming more into vogue around the league. So, if you don't feel great about him being able to separate um, outside, down in and down out, kick him in the slot and let him work his advantages there. And then Webster, we know he's athletic, he's shifty. Let's see what he can do in an offense that's going to be predicated on creating more space and giving guys room to run. Let's not pigeonhole him into just a returner. If he has more to offer, let's tap into that. So I'm really excited, man, at least in training camp to see who steps to the forefront. And hey, if nobody steps to the forefront and they got to go out and add a Stephon Diggs or whoever else might be available, so be it. But right now, I think this coaching staff has given me the confidence that I'm willing to throw everybody out there and see what we have first. Now, if this was last year's coaching staff, I'd be like, hey, nah, get me a vet. I need another vet in here. But this coaching staff, I'm willing to give them a little bit more of a runway, especially because it's not like we're just throwing out just guys. This is an actually like legit talented group. Not we're not saying that this is like top 10 receiving core in the league, but it's some decent young talent in this group.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is, Chris. I think, I hear and I see that talk out there about, wanting to bring in another vet, and they still may do that. But there is a lot of talent here, younger guys, right? In some cases, I think we know who Zay is. I think we know what Zay is. Bait, we've seen potential, but, we're looking for consistency. And then Devontae, like I said, kind of started to show. And then you got the guys they took in the draft. So, what do you think, Chris? I mean, you like the makeup of the group? Would you want to add somebody? What do you think about it?
So that's a difficult question for me to answer right now because there's so many unknowns with this. Obviously we know what Zay Flowers is, and there's a potential for him to be even more than what we know he can be right now. So that's super exciting when it comes to Zay Flowers. Now, behind him, although everybody that we name, we know they have talent, but talent and production are two completely different things.
Yeah,
Hmm.
And we've seen that with Bateman. He's the prime example of that. I don't watch Rashad Bateman and I say this guy is not talented. This guy cannot play wide receiver in the NFL. But for whatever reason it is, whether it's the offense he's in, whether it's him, whether it's Lamar, something's just not, it just hasn't clicked with him yet in, the 5, 6 years he's been in the league. Um, Hopefully with this coaching staff, like you said earlier, Mike, hopefully they can, kind of fit more into the type of offense that can click with his skill set and with how he likes to operate because we see him get open time and time again. But the Baltimore offense has never been a timing based offense. Um, there's no doubt in my mind that he can be a good player, but he just has to put it all together. At a certain point, it becomes about you. And you
yeah,
have to kind of take hold of your career and say and you know do what you need to do in order to be successful. You
Hmm.
know, you're with the MVP quarterback. You're in an offense that is putting up numbers. So, at a certain point, it falls on you. And this is definitely a make or break year for him, in my opinion. New coaching
yeah,
staff, so they have no ties to him whatsoever.
Hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this whole Bateman thing plays out because I know the three of us are fans of his,
Hmm.
and
yeah.
I'm going to be rooting for him. But like I said, at a certain point, you got to say, all right, this is who he is. If he keeps showing us this, we can't just say he's talented, he's talented, he's talented if there's no production with that talent, because we can just wish, 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 and wish, but it doesn't mean anything if he isn't putting up the numbers or making the plays that he needs to make. Um, Now Devontae, he's somebody I'm super excited about too. I can't wait to watch how he comes into this season because Gradually, I didn't expect anything from him year one because if you watch his North Carolina tape and you could just watch him go up against Nate and you could see how Nate shut him down and you were like, yeah, this is going to take some time for this kid.
Mhm.
Then you see a little bit of that that dog on special teams.
Mhm.
And then I kind of start sitting up and I'm like, oh, okay, like, not to be on my John Harbaugh shit, but I'm like, damn, like I didn't know he had this in him.
Mhm.
Where, he's busting his ass on special teams. And,
Yep.
he's leaving it all out there on teams. And then you kind of see him get in Harb's good graces, and then now he's getting snaps on offense. Now we've been speaking about this for almost a decade now, where if you're a wide receiver on the Ravens, you know you're not going to get a ton of opportunities, but what you do with those opportunities, you need to maximize them. And he's the poster boy for that because every catch he was making was like a touchdown almost.
Well.
So, with him, I want to see how he comes in, because this is year three now, right?
Mhm.
So year three, you kind of see wide
Sure.
receivers take that next step. And I just want to see how he's going to come in because, like Carey alluded to, Bate could be number two, he could be number three, he could be number four. We don't know right now.
Hmm.
And if we're privy to that, Devontae Walker, who's itching to play, wide receiver, not just special teams. He's like, okay, this is my chance to show this
Mhm.
new staff what I can do. So I am super duper. He's like almost at the top of my list for players who I'm excited to see how they come into this training camp. Um, Now the rookies, Elijah Surratt, huge fan of his game. I think you can move him around. Like Carey said, he's a guy who can give you some looks in the slot. He can give you some looks on the outside. Um, I think he's going to be one of those steady Eddie uh, quarterback's best friend type of wide receivers, where I don't think he'll have I don't think he'll have like any 900-yard seasons in his career as long as Zay Flowers is there and things like that. But I do think he's a guy where he'll have like 500, maybe 600 yards in his career. But those are going to be some damn important yards that are on there.
Mhm.
It's going to be like a Jason Avant type of guy in the offense. And every offense needs a Jason Avant type of wide receiver, where it's a guy who do the dirty work, a guy who will make the tough catches on third downs, a guy who could be a weapon in the red zone. And I think that's what Elijah Surratt can bring. Uh, Now, Jacoby Lane, he's that guy that fans have been asking for when it comes to Lamar for a long time now.
Mhm.
Jump ball, win above the rim type of player, and he's that.
Yeah.
That's what he does. That's his trump card is going up, getting vertical, and snatching that ball out of the air. Now, how's his game going to translate into the pros where all of the cornerbacks are bigger, all of the cornerbacks are faster, all of the cornerbacks are way more physical than they are in college? How is his game going to translate into the pros, and how long is he going to take to acclimate himself to that type of physicality? That's the question
Hmm.
that needs to be answered as far as this training camp and preseason goes. But he's a guy with immense talent. There's no question in that. Now, as far as what to expect from each of them in their rookie season, I don't know. I can't call it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I truly do not know. I can't give a prediction of who will have this many yards, who will have that many yards. I don't know, but I'm just happy that they have some real wide receivers to battle it out and to, put some ball winners, in that room for Lamar, some bigger body guys. You can tell that was a huge emphasis. And these are guys that can play through contact, make tough catches, and that's what a lot of fans have been clamoring for. So now that they have these young cats, like I'm excited to see them go to work and see how this all plays out.
Yeah, and I try to stay away from the prediction because I don't know. But if you're trying to project, and yeah, there's a lot of caveats to this, but if you're looking at the Bears offense last year, at their pass catchers, nobody had more than 700 yards receiving, right? In terms of all their receivers. And that was Colston Loveland, who went over 700. Receivers were all in the 600s. But in terms of target opportunities, you got two guys in Adunze and Moore. Dunze had 90 targets, Moore had 85. Zacchaeus, 65 targets, Luther Burden, 60 targets. So opportunities were there for 4 to 5 different pass catchers. I mean, Loveland almost like a big slot wide receiver, really, in a lot of ways. But even if you're just talking about pure wide receivers, there's 4 guys there, um, with at least 60 targets. And you say, okay, well, so what? Well, last year for the Ravens, now injury played a big factor in this. So I'm going to go back to 2024 too. But in 2025, other than Zay, who went over 100, I think Andrews had like 70 something. And then the next was like in the 30s. Like DeAndre Hopkins had like 39, and Bate had like something in the 30s. Again, we're dealing with injuries in some of those cases. But even if you go back to 2024, right, MVP season, I think Bate had 72 targets, was like a career high. Of course, they went over 100 again. And then the next guy, Aguilar, was like in the 50s. So it just wasn't that type of throwing offense in terms of the kinds of opportunities, the kinds of target opportunities that guys got in that Chicago Bears offense last year, uh, versus the 2024 Ravens. So we don't know if it's going to pan out, obviously, like that again for the Ravens this year, because this is Declan Doyle, not Ben Johnson. Different set of opponents, different game script, different players. But they also ran the ball a ton last year, just like the Ravens. They were right behind the Ravens in rush attempts. I think both of them was over 500, and it was like within like 2 or 3 attempts of each other. So they're really close to each other. But then I bring that up because even with all of those rush attempts, and both teams were like top 5, even with all those rush attempts, you still had all those target opportunities for guys. So we could see more of that than what we've seen in previous years. We've seen like certain guys, get a bunch of targets, whether it's Andrews, likely, the year that he kind of had his breakout. We've seen that. But spreading it over like 4 or 5 guys is not really something we've seen. So that could be interesting. And then that gives more opportunities to some of the guys you talked about, whether that's Tez, whether that's the rookies, Bateman, obviously. So LeJohntay, who knows? So that's going to be something that I'm looking forward to. Is like, well, what is that going to look like? Because if it projects similar to what we saw from the Bears last year, that's not really something we've seen. It's been a little bit more concentrated in terms of the Ravens pass catchers. So let's do offensive line, and then we may break these up. I may chop offense and defense up. But let's get through offensive line, and then we'll see what we're gonna do there. So offensive line again, a lot of names, but we'll start with the guys who we think are looking like projected starters, at least for some of the positions. The center, who the hell knows? I still don't know. But left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, right tackle, Roger Rosengarten. I think we feel pretty good about John Simpson at one of the guard spots. Left guard, could be right guard. And then Vega Ione at the other guard spot. And then at center, will it be Danny Pinter? Will it be Jovan Gwynn? Will it be Corey Bullock? Could it be Nick Dawkins, the undrafted guy out of Penn State, undrafted rookie? I don't know in terms of center. But then let me get the other guys in too. So at the other tackle spots, you got Carson Vincent coming back, year 2, who I think, acquitted himself well for his rookie season to get to the point where you're not active on game day, to get some game day activations, and then to actually play in games. Now, again, a lot of
Over a
injuries.
vet.
Yeah, over a vet, even with injuries. I think he acquitted himself well, being able to maneuver that way. Diego Pounds, undrafted guy this year. Played at Ole Miss most recently. Interesting,
Mhm.
interesting. Physical profile. Don't see a lot of guys that big, that size. So that's something you can't teach. But there's some things in the run game, some questions there. I think I'd probably say a little bit more consistent pass protector right now than run blocker, but interesting. Of course, Andrew Voorhees at guard, was back. Jared Penning, and let's see who else. Evan Bernstein, Emory Jones, who guard tackle. I don't know what they're going to do. They didn't know what they were going to do last year. Let's see what this coaching staff does this year. And then Gerard Lichtenhand, another undrafted guy from last year, tackle, big tall dude. So, what was interesting to me about this, as I kick it to you, Carey, was uh, obviously there's kind of the unknown at center, even though by all accounts from the offseason programs look like Danny Penner, might be the leader in the clubhouse so far. Bullock was injured, so we don't really know. So we missed a number of practices, so we'll see once we get into camp. But aside from that, if you look behind Ronnie Stanley and Roger Rosengarten, yeah, we talked about Carson Vincent, but they're very young behind those guys. And I guess you could say this for any offensive line, right? If one of your starters goes down, particularly at tackle, it's probably not good. You probably don't have like a whole lot of high end options behind your starters at tackle. That's probably true across the league. But that was just something that kind of stood out to me. Like they were really pretty young uh, behind those two guys at tackle. But what do you think about this O line group heading into training camp, Kerry?
Yeah, it's an interesting group. Like you said, it's a lot of youth. Um, I'll just kind of go position by position, tackle. Obviously you got Ronnie coming back, and you got Rosengar, and then you have Carson Vincent, who I thought really showed himself well in the playing time that he got last season. It kind of gave me some hope as far as him going forward. Or if you get into a pinch and you need a third tackle to play, I feel okay about him, being able to kind of hold his own. So like that group, go over the guard. They took their medicine and took the best player in Vega, which obviously we're glad to see. You got Simpson coming back, who should be solid, I would think. But also, if you're going to leave Emory Jones at guard, hopefully this is a meritocracy where we see if Emory Jones just comes out and just outplays Simpson. I know the contract is what it is, but hopefully if Emory Jones just flat out outplays him to an extent that they feel like he's just a better player, and enough of a gap, then they would go ahead and start Emory Jones. But it's good to have Vega locked in at that one spot. You feel just a little bit more comfort with that. And then at center, like you said, um, Pinter is the leader in the clubhouse seemingly right now. I watched all his snaps after they signed him, all his snaps from last season when he filled in for the Colts. And I gotta say, he's never probably got this comp before, and it's gonna be a little bit weird for him if he hears this, but I'm gonna tie it all back together. I've been following this TikTok account that it basically talks about forgotten meals, and it's of Black culture, and it goes back and talks about all the different things that um, Black people would cook and eat that they could do on a cheap
Mhm.
to get by. And we're talking about, you know, neck bones and
Mhm.
chicken livers and vinegar pie, all these different things. And just talking about how you can just take something that isn't expensive and make it stretch. Is Danny Pennant of Ravens neck bones and rice? Because when I watched those snaps, I saw a dude that if everything is right around him, I feel like he can give you just enough to make it stretch. He's just athletic enough in a zone blocking scheme. He's small, obviously, but you know, he competes. He's smart, scrappy, all those, those adjectives that we throw out for a player of his ilk. But I feel like he may be able to give you just enough to get by if everything else is solidified. And that'll be the test. Is everything solidified? We're getting upgraded the O line coaching position. So guys should be taught better, should be brought along better. Obviously, you add Vega. That was a huge piece. Hopefully, whoever is at that other guard spot, whether it's Simpson or Emory Jones, solidifies themselves. And then you get, hopefully Ronnie can stay at his level or close to, and then Rosengard can kind of bounce back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you get those things, Penner might be able to give you just enough because I look at around the league and the landscape, and a lot of people say trade for a center. Who's trading for? Who's trading you a starting caliber center right now?
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah, like that position is important for a reason. People aren't just giving that away.
Yeah, there's a reason
So,
their guy got what he got in free agency.
right.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I'm looking at that, and then Corey Bullock is, unknown, a bit of a wild card. He's kind of like Tez is to the wide receiver position because he's got some size and some athletic ability, and then in the limited snaps that you saw real movement, skill, and ability. So if he takes advantage of his opportunity and jumps to the forefront and jumps Penner, great. So be it. If that happens, so that's just another, a ceiling setter. I've used that term a lot, but he's a ceiling setter. Corey Bullock is. So, just another group that, like the wide receiver position, because of the moves they made, because of the coaching staff, I'm willing to lend a level of optimism going into it. So, just a group I'm at overall that's young that I'm excited to see.
yeah, I am an unashamed Corey Bullock fan. Those who listen to the pod probably know that. Unfortunately, due to my support of my client the last couple of years, I may have lost all O-line credibility. But if he plays well, just remember who told you. All right. So, Chris, let me get your thoughts on the O-line. And before I do, I actually thought when Carey was setting that up, I thought he was about to say Danny Pinter is the Chitlins of the race. I was like, he is not going to be for everybody, but the people that like him really like him.
I love him.
Right? They love him, and they might stake your house up while you making them. But once you get them on that plate, you're like, I told you these was gonna be good. So I thought that's where we was going. But I like neck bone because again, you can do many things with the neck bone, right? You can get a couple different meals out of that.
That's why y'all come to deep cover. The correlations you just never knew you was gonna get.
You just don't know. You just don't know. So anyway, Chris, I don't know where you want to go from that with the chitlins and the neck bones, but what do you think about this O-line, man?
So like Carey said, they finally took their medicine and they took Vega, which is a step in the right direction. And John Simpson, I'm not the biggest John Simpson fan, but I think having him in your room when you have Vega and you have Ronnie and hopefully Rosengart can bounce back, that's a solid 4 right there. That's solid. And when you look at last year, this is like a big time upgrade compared to what we had last year.
Yeah.
Because to me, those weren't starting caliber guards. We know John Simpson is a starter in this league.
He's done it.
We know that. He may not have the highest ceiling, but we know he's a starting guard. And he's a guy who can be physical and set a tone. Vega, we already know Vega. He's going to be a rookie, but the talent is there. We know he's, an elite pass protector as far as a prospect is concerned. So I'm hoping that can translate to the pros as well. Ronnie was solid. He had, some ups and downs, but that goes with playing the left tackle position. Rosengarten, he needs to have a bounce back because I was pretty disappointed with his sophomore year. Hopefully he can come back stronger. Uh, hopefully with the better guard play next to him, that'll help him a little bit. And I'm in a similar boat with Carey. I don't, center's the wild card. We don't know who's going to be the starter. If I had to bet money, I would say Danny Pinter is going to be that. Um, I can't say that I'm confident in it, but if that is your weakest spot, I can live with it. It's not my preference, but anything is an upgrade compared to what we had last season. So I will take a solid 4 and a wild card at center. So I'm happy with where it is, where the offensive line is trending to for now and for the future as well. Um, I'm I'm pretty excited about Carson Vincent because I think he's a guy who can be your swing tackle. And we know it's been difficult for them to develop a young guy who can be their swing tackle. And
Yep.
I'm hopeful that he can be that guy because, like you said, Mike, for him to start off as inactive, then he's getting the jersey on game day, and they're like, "Yeah, Joseph Noteboom,
Mm-mm.
go hang out in the stands or something." And for Carson Vincent to do that in his rookie season, because we know he was green. I mean, we all watched his tape. We knew he was green coming out of school, and but it, if the experience, and then if you can get the experience and then also match with the physical talent that he has, then you have something there. You have something on your hands, and then with the with Ledford there, we know he's a guy who can develop talent and get the most out of these players. So I'm excited to see what he can do with Vincent over the next couple of years. And Diego Pounds, he's somebody that I, if you would have asked me, I would have said he was going to be drafted in the fifth round.
Mm.
So for him to be an undrafted free agent, like nobody should be surprised if he makes this roster because he's talented. Like he moves really well for his size. I don't know how the hell he went undrafted in a league that is so tackle thirsty because
Mhm.
I don't know. I've watched a lot of prospects and there's no way that he should have been undrafted. Um, so he's super talented. I think he definitely will have a spot on this roster. Now moving inside to the backups, kind of the forgotten man, Emory Jones.
Mhm.
Is he gonna
Yeah.
be a swing tackle? Is he gonna be a guard? We don't really know, but this is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
If you have a guy like Emory Jones who's fighting for a starting spot, like you're in a good place because there's an alternate universe where Emory Jones is our starter right now. And we really don't know what we have with Emory Jones right now because barely got any snaps his rookie season, due to the injury. Then, he came back and we know Harbs, he loves Voorhees, he loved Daniel Falele. So I'm excited to see how he's going to come into his sophomore season and how he'll look because we know that jump from rookie year to your second year, players transform themselves physically and they make a big jump there. So I'm excited to see what he does and if he can actually compete with John Simpson for a starting spot because that to me that's best case scenario if he can beat out John Simpson because this is like we said earlier when with the wide receiver group, this coaching staff has no ties to these players.
Mm-mm.
So it is that scene from The Dark Knight where the Joker breaks the pool sticks and he's like, "You two fight for the bone,"
Yeah.
and that that's what it's going
Yeah.
to be. And hopefully Emery Jones can take that because I'm excited. I was a fan of his last year, so if he can show something and make some noise there and make that decision for who should be a starting guard, if he can make that a difficult decision for the coaching staff, that's a huge win. Um, Now going to Andrew Voorhees, to me, this is where he should be discussed.
Mhm.
You like your
Yeah.
your third or fourth offensive guard on your roster. This is where he should be. So he's in a perfect place right now, in my opinion.
Mhm.
This is not a guy that you want as your starter. But if he's your backup or if
Okay.
he's your fourth string offensive guard,
Okay.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
I love that. Like to me, you have great depth if he's your fourth guy off the bench. So I'm cool with him as long as he stays there. Um, and then Javon Gwynn, Corey Bullock, Nick Dawkins, Evan Bernstein.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so.
I
Um,
think it's pronounced Beardson. I
Oh,
think I
oh,
want to say something like the T is silent or something maybe.
hold on.
Pearson. Okay,
We're going.
Beardson, I think.
okay. So
We're gonna go back to the beef.
so if I had to bet, like immediately after the draft, I would say Corey Bullock was the front runner to be the starter and at center. But then we had that Ledford interview on the Lounge podcast where he was talking about Pinter and Gwynn and
Yeah,
did not mention Bullock at all.
not so
Mhm.
fast, my friend. Not so fast.
So I was like, things that make you go, hmm.
Hmm.
So I found that very interesting. But I'm not writing him off yet. I know he just got surgery too, like a couple weeks ago or something like that, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know what that's about, but I'm not writing him off. Hopefully he'll be healthy during training camp, and the cream will rise to the top. So whatever happens there, I mean, we know he's big. We know he has good movement skills. So me personally, I would like to see that bigger body at center. So that's why I would like him as the leader in that race. But like I said, that Ledford interview, it didn't lead me to believe that he is the leader or even in second right now. Nick Dawkins, he's a guy who I've really liked coming out of the draft. And when I say really liked, I don't want people to think that I thought Nick Dawkins was like a third, fourth round pick because I did not think that. I thought he was like a six rounder. He went undrafted. Uh, He's not a guy that's gonna wow you with any kind of physical traits, but he plays with good leverage. He can move. He's a guy who's always communicating, always lining guys up. Um, he a team captain. We know the Ravens love that. So he's somebody who really caught my eye during the process and during watching Vega. And I brought it up before, like on Coach's show and stuff like that. His family lineage is one of the most amazing I've ever seen. His father was Daryl Dawkins. Um,
Oh damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
yeah,
Chocolate Thunder.
yep.
Wow.
His his cousin is Brian Dawkins,
Mm.
and his other cousin is
Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. What I always think about when I think of Brian Dawkins.
I always like because he didn't curse, so he would be like, "Doggone it!" And then his other cousin is Carl Anthony Towns. So that
Woo.
those
Wow.
family gatherings are got to be crazy. Um, so I'm rooting for him, but he's not anybody who I'm like, oh, he's going to be a starter. I don't have those kind of expectations on him. But Hopefully, he's the guy who could stick around on the practice squad and eventually just chip away, chip away, chip away, and earn his spot on the team. Next year or the year after.
Yeah, them bloodlines. Whew, that's crazy. Nick Dawkins. Carey was right. Went back and checked the beast. So it is Bear in Sin. So like
Berenson, okay.
Bear hyphen En hyphen Sen.
Berenson.
Berenson. And I mean, we could also call him Van Wilder because he was in school for 7 years. So
Damn.
yeah, going back to 2019, he was in South
Shit.
Dakota
Oh
State.
wow.
But some of that he had a red shirt in there. Then there was a COVID season that was shortened. Then he had a medical red shirt year. And then basically his last 4 years, he became kind of like a full time starter. So the first 3 years, kind of off to a slow start, and then last four. So I was surprised when I saw he's 25. I was like, okay, 25, a little bit older, but then I'm like, but he's been in school for 7 years. He should be like 29.
And Dane likes him. And I'll say this, one last thing on the O line. You got Berenson, you got Javon Gwynn, you obviously got, Bullock. A lot of guys vying for those backup spots, and in Bullock's case, maybe the starter. All athletic zone fits.
Mhm.
Voorhees, you may want to tread lightly. You may want to come in in your best shape because, yeah, a roster spot is not promised.
No, 100% not. And we kind of heard it as we talked through this group. I think we've heard it through some of the other groups too. It's kind of this consistent thing of opportunity. There are opportunities here to win spots, right? Because you guys both have mentioned it. There are no ties, right? For guys who've been here before who were not drafted or were not signed by this current staff. No ties. So, if you're a guy in year two, uh, there isn't you can't trade on that, right? Like, oh, okay, guys, coaches who brought me in last year, coaches who coached me last year, they know what I'm about. This is a clean slate. So there are definitely opportunities here. And that can go either way. I'm not saying it's a negative. I'm not saying it's like, oh, wow, this ain't my guy, get him up out of here. No, I mean you could impress them and they'd be like, okay, yeah, I see why they took you. I see why you're still here. So it could go either way.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying there are opportunities there. So yeah, you got to come in, and not be overthinking this, right? Just like, hey, I'm just balls to the wall. I'm gonna leave it all out there every practice, every day, and let the chips fall where they may. Like you were saying, two dogs, one bone.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Because Ledford could unlock something with Voorhees.
Sure.
You never know.
You don't know. You don't know. I mean, we've seen that before with coaching changes and how and system changes. How somebody who maybe doesn't look as good or struggles or doesn't have the same type of opportunity in one system or one set of coaches, and then new coaches, new system, and it looked like a different player. Where was this guy at before? Or something that you saw in college that you knew was there and then didn't see it with one staff, and then they change. You're like, and then it comes out, you're like, that's what I saw back in college. Where was that at? So you just never know. So that's I think a theme that runs through all of this for a lot of these guys. That there's going to be opportunities there for them. So yeah, I think we will split this up. I think we'll do two. We'll do offense and we'll do defense. So I think we'll end here on offense. We'll do defense in a separate pod and push that one out. So we'll end this and then we'll come back and you guys will get two separate pods, which is listen. You're getting two pods from us in a short period of time. This is a present. This is a surprise. This is a treat.
In July.
in July, right? They're not even playing.
Yeah.
They're not even in training camp. So this is a treat. So we'll go ahead and end the offensive one here, and then we're gonna come back and do defense, and I guess we'll talk about special teams. Yeah, probably, maybe. At least the specialists, we kind of know who they are. Even though they got a rookie punter again, so they've been through that before. But we'll see. So yeah, let's end it here, and then we'll do the defensive one, and we'll catch you guys next time. Be good out there. All right, so.